on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I bring you guys your #1 guide for Pokemon breeding in Pokemon Sword and Shield. From this video, I'm going to teach you guys everything you need to know about breeding for competitive Pokemon and for shiny Pokemon. So this is a multifaceted video. I'm going to help you guys get all the items you need to start, and then we're going to jump into the nitty-gritty of breeding. So be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe if you guys are new, and save this video because it's a very good resource for you guys. I'm going to try to cover everything I know about breeding. I've bred hundreds of shinies, I've hatched thousands of eggs, and I'm here to tell you exactly how to throw down in Sword and Shield. So we're going to start here in Milo's town, and the first item we're looking for is called an Everstone. An Everstone can be found hidden right here in a sparkling spot, but you can also thief them from Pokemon like Roggenrola. Pretty easy to grab. The next item we're going to grab is called the Destiny Knot. The Destiny Knot is an item that is used in breeding to pass down stats from the parents to their offspring. The Everstone is an item that is going to pass down nature from parents to offspring. And you might be like, aDrive, I can pass down, you know, I could use bottle caps, aDrive now. I'll get to that shortly. Here's your Destiny Knot, by the way. You'll need BP, which you can get in the end of the game. These are also the power items here: bracers, belts, lens, band, anklet, and weight. These can be used to pass specific stats down to offspring. So the Destiny Knot is going to pass 5 stats down from the parents, whereas the power items are going to pass down 1 specific stat. So let's say you want to pass down your speed stat, you can give your Pokemon the power anklet, and it's going to guarantee that the speed stat is going to be passed down. Now, I'm going to show you guys a few other things really quickly that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to head to Winden, which is the post game. When you get to the battle tower here in Winden, you can actually unlock a few different things. One of the things you can unlock is the IV checker. The IV checker is some way that you can actually check the stats of your Pokemon and display them. You can talk to this lady here and do the single battle tower, and you have to win 6 battles and battle Leon. Once you've battled Leon and defeated him, you will unlock the IV checker. If you need a team, you can talk to the guy in the green jacket here, and he'll lend you some teams to use that are actually pretty good. I recommend using the team with Dragapult, just Dynamaxing it, and then just attacking. It makes things a lot easier. Now when I go into my box, you can actually see that I can see the stats on the right hand side. Best, 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 pretty good, best, pretty good. So my type null here has 4 perfect stats, best being perfect, which is a 31 IV, and the other stats are less than perfect. I can look at some other Pokemon like this Ditto here, which has 4 perfect stats and then some okay stats. So the better the stat for most cases, the better the Pokemon is going to be. There are exceptions though. Some Pokemon like Snorlax benefit under Trick Room, and a Pokemon like Snorlax would prefer to have a 0 speed stat, but we'll get into that later. So we've covered our IV checker, we've covered our power items, we've covered our different items that you need for breeding. The next thing you're going to want to focus on is getting a good Ditto. Now Ditto can be found in max raid battles in the wild area. So it's actually pretty easy to do, and there's a lot of people who are manipulating those max raid battles to get really strong Dittos, even perfect 6 IV Dittos, which is pretty nuts because that's something that we've really never had before. We've never really had an opportunity to get perfect 6 IV Dittos, and now you can do it without much effort. You see a lot of people on the internet talking about foreign Japanese Dittos. The reason why people want foreign Dittos, like the Ditto in my Pokemon bag here, this one right here, which is a French Ditto, the reason why people want foreign Dittos is because foreign Dittos increase the chance of breeding for a shiny Pokemon. Anytime you breed 2 Pokemon from different language games, you do what's called the Masuda Method. The Masuda Method is a shiny hunting method that increases the rate of getting a shiny egg from the parents. Breeding with a shiny Pokemon does not help your chances at all, but breeding with 2 Pokemon from different regions and language games does help your chances. Now, it doesn't have to be English and Japanese. It could be German and Spanish. It could be Japanese and Chinese. They just have to be different from each other. So one of the most coveted things in the game right now is to get a Ditto that is not your language, like a Japanese Ditto. So you may see people online who are trading them or even selling them. Be very mindful though, a lot of the times they are hacked or generated in a program, so they're not considered legitimate. Now the game itself doesn't really realize that and probably doesn't care, but it's just something to make note of. The official Pokemon rules do state that Pokemon that have been bred with parents that were hacked or manipulated are considered illegitimate. Now, I will say, I don't really think it was something that they would check, but I personally would rather use a 4 IV perfect Ditto that I know is perfect than get a hacked one from someone else. But again, that's up to you how you're going to play the game. The next thing you're going to want to do is get a Pokemon with Flame Body. Flame Body is an ability that you can find on little Sizzlepede here as its hidden ability, but more easily, you can get a Roly-Coly and evolve it into a Carkol, and it can have the ability Flame Body. Flame Body and Magma Armor increase the speed at which eggs hatch, so they can be really useful when it comes to hatching eggs because you'll simply hatch them faster. Another thing you can do before we get started in breeding is head to Sirchester. Once you've beaten the game in Sirchester, you can actually pick up 2 really good items. You can head to the hotel over here, and you can talk to the Game Freak directors to get the Shiny Charm if you've completed your Pokedex, or the Oval Charm, which will increase the amount of frequency that you'll receive eggs. So there's a couple really good items that you can get, and you're going to want to make sure you grab all those before you start. Here is where you're going to find your Oval Charm. I believe you just defeat this guy here, and he'll give you your Oval Charm. And then if you go into the room next door, and you complete your Pokedex, which means catching every single Pokemon of the 400, and talk to this guy, he'll give you a Shiny Charm. Both those items are really crucial for getting shiny Pokemon, and simply just getting eggs a lot faster. So when you get all the items that you have, you've got your Everstone, you've got your Destiny Knot, you've got your Ditto, you've got your Flame Body Pokemon, all of these different things, you're ready to jump into breeding. So let's head over to our Daycare. And again, there's 2 different Daycares that you can utilize. There's the Daycare in the wild area, which is the one that I primarily am going to be using, which is, I was just there a minute ago, and now, of course, I can't find it. There's the one right here in the Daycare, and then there's actually another Daycare that you can fly to up here. Either one is fine. It really makes no difference which Daycare you're using, but they're both useful in their own right. So I'm going to use the one down here, and again, you have this Daycare person right here, so this is who I'm going to talk to. So there's a few little kind of pieces to breeding for a Pokemon, so let's kind of jump into those aspects. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about how to breed a Pokemon. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that I have in my box here, and I've treated these over to just give you guys an example. But here I have this little Applin, and I'm gonna try to breed for an Applin, which is actually what I'm gonna be doing on my live stream. Now this Applin is holding the Everstone, which means it's going to pass down its nature, the Jolly nature. Now when you pass down a nature and you hold an Everstone, that means every egg that you receive from that Pokemon is going to have that exact nature. So every egg I hatch with this Applin is going to have a Jolly nature, which is very crucial. Now again, post-game you can get mints in the battle tower, and those mints can be used to change the impact of those stats. Like you can change it from Jolly to, it will still be Jolly, but the stats will be different. So you can change natures if you mess something up. And the same goes for IVs. When you have a Pokemon that has less than perfect IVs, like my Applin here, you can actually get those checked as well. You can use bottle caps to max out those particular stats to make up the difference in those Pokemon stats. So if it doesn't have a perfect stat, you can use a bottle cap to fix that. However, mints and bottle cap stats do not pass down in breeding. Those are simply stat modification tools for that particular Pokemon. So you cannot go catch a Ditto and bottle cap it up to perfect stats and then breed those down. It does not work that way. The other item I had mentioned is the Destiny Knot. The Destiny Knot is an item that is going to pass down 5 stats from the parents. Each parent has 6 stats: HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. And you have 2 Pokemon, so there's 12 stats total. The Destiny Knot is going to force that 5 out of those 12 stats are pulled down to the offspring randomly. So in theory, if you had 2 perfect Pokemon that were both flawless and 6 perfect stats, and you used the Destiny Knot, you would always have offspring with 5 perfect stats. The 6th stat is going to be always randomly generated between the value 0 and 31. 0 being the minimum value and 31 being a perfect stat. That stat is going to be random. So you're at the mercy of using bottle caps or just hoping to get the right perfect 6 IV Pokemon. However, most competitive Pokemon don't need 6 perfect stats. In fact, most competitive Pokemon generally only need 5. So you can pretty much make most things work. So in the case of my little Applin here, because the set that I plan to run on him is a Jolly Nature physical attacking Applin, I don't have to worry about its special attack stat. If I have a less than perfect special attack when I'm breeding, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to use that stat at all. Now, things can get a little bit more intricate, as I had mentioned with Trick Room. Some Pokemon prefer to have 0 speed, like a Vikavolt. Some Pokemon prefer to have 0 attack, so that way they take less damage from foul play. So there are some nuances to this, but for the most part, the objective here is to breed 2 Pokemon together to get a shiny egg. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your Applin here, like I have. I'm going to give it the Everstone, so it passes down its jolly nature. I'm going to take my Ditto and give it the Destiny Knot, and I'm going to put them both in the Daycare. I'm going to box every other Pokemon that I have on my team, except for my Flame Body Pokemon. So all I will have left is my Flame Body Mushu, or Carkol, whatever works for you. I'm going to give the eggs to the lady, and I'm going to get on my bike, and I'm going to ride my bike around this area here until she comes and gives me eggs. She'll cross her arms when the eggs are ready. I'm going to pick up those eggs, and I'm going to continuously hatch eggs until I get the desired offspring. Now, with the IV checker, you can continuously check those Pokemon's eggs to see if they're better, and you can swap out the parents as you go. So my original Applin isn't very good, but as I continue to breed and pass down those stats from Ditto, the offspring is going to continuously get better and better, and I can keep swapping my Applins in and out to get the best Applin and ultimately give myself the best combination to get the offspring that I'm looking for. Now, I do want to mention here that when you're doing this, there's a few different variables when it comes to shiny chance. When you're breeding two Pokemon from different language games like I'm doing right now, it's called the Masuda Method, and it's a 1 in 683% chance to get, or 1 in 683 chance to get a shiny. If you're doing it with the Shiny Charm, it's 1 in 512. So it's one of the best ways to go about getting shinies in the game is breeding from different languages. Otherwise, you're at the default odds of 1 in 4,000 or 1 in 1,365. So you can continuously do these eggs. One thing I wanted to mention too that's always asked is the egg is determined as soon as you receive it. So the second you take the egg from the lady, the egg is determined. You cannot save right before an egg hatches and try to keep getting that same egg over and over again. It simply just does not work. You're gonna waste your time. Now there's a few other little pieces to eggs that I wanted to talk about. So let's actually jump over to Cerebi.net, which is a phenomenal website and a phenomenal resource for hatching eggs and breeding. Okay, so here we are on Cerebi.net, and there's a few things I want to call out. One is the base egg steps. Now this has not been updated, but every single Pokemon has a set amount of eggs steps that it takes to hatch them. So some Pokemon may take a really long time to hatch, some won't take long at all. It just depends on the species. Each Pokemon has different abilities, and these abilities can be passed down through breeding. Hidden abilities are generally the more coveted abilities, and these can be found through max raid battles, and max raid battles exclusively. They can be pretty rare though. I spent about 7 hours looking for a hidden ability Applin yesterday and didn't find it, and then I finally found 2 in a row, so it can be a little bit tricky. But hidden abilities do pass through breeding. You cannot, however, just randomly breed a Pokemon and hope for a hidden ability. It does not work that way. You do have to get it on the parent. You cannot have a hidden ability Ditto and have that pass to something else. You have to have the hidden ability of the species that you're looking for, and that will ultimately pass it down. Now, Cerebi's still updating his website with other information, so there will be more going on there. But you're going to want to research your Pokemon that you're going to go for. So you're going to pick a target. Let's say Applin is my target. I have Bulletproof now. So when you're breeding with a Ditto, hidden abilities can be passed from both the male or the female, but the female generally gives a higher percentage to pass the hidden ability in the newer generations. So I would recommend trying to do that, especially if you're breeding with something that's not a Ditto, like you're trying to get egg moves. So that's a pretty big thing. Now let's scroll down a little bit and take a little bit more of a look at what Applin can do here. Applin itself doesn't really do a whole lot, so I'm going to open up Flapple, which is my ultimate goal here. Now Flapple is really cool because you could see all his different moves and stuff like that, his abilities, everything like that. You could see his egg moves as well. And Cerebi has this great chart where, let's say I want to get Sucker Punch on my Applin. I can pull up the details here, and I can see that I can get Applin Sucker Punch through a Maractus. So I would have to get a Maractus with Sucker Punch and breed that, make the Maractus the dad, the Applin the mom, and those two would breed together, or a Flapple or an Appleton, it doesn't matter. Those will breed together and pass down the offspring. Whatever the female is, that's what the egg's gonna be, unless you're breeding with a Ditto, in which case it's always gonna be the opposite Pokemon, because you can't get eggs with Ditto. You can't like breed two Dittos together to get a Ditto. It doesn't work that way. So this is how you get egg moves. You simply say, okay, I want Sucker Punch. What Pokemon learns Sucker Punch? Maractus does. I gotta get me a Maractus with Sucker Punch. I gotta get me an Applin. I gotta breed the two together, pass down Sucker Punch, and then I can take an Applin and breed it with a Ditto. With Sucker Punch, I could take an Applin and breed it with another Applin. I could do whatever. And you can do multi-chains with egg moves, so it can get a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the simple aspect. There's also another feature in this game that allows you to get egg moves too, where you can actually go to that other Daycare, and it's pretty cool. For those who don't know, the yellow aura Pokemon in the game have a higher chance to have good stats and egg moves. So if you find a Pokemon in the overworld with the yellow aura, you can encounter that and catch that, and it may have the egg move. So that could be really useful. But this person right here, you can actually, I believe, talk to them in the Daycare. I think it's this person, maybe it's inside. Okay, so apparently the egg move transfer feature is just simply talking to the NPC here and having an open slot on your move. So there's a feature in this game where if you had, let's say, an Applin with Sucker Punch, but you had a Shiny Applin that didn't have Sucker Punch, you can actually transfer the Sucker Punch from one Applin to the other because it's an egg move for Applin. So apparently you simply talk to the person and have an open slot on it. So if I'm wrong on that, I do apologize. I'll add like something in the description that updates that, but that should be the gist there. So that's how you do the egg moves as well. There's a lot of different things that you can do with, you know, breeding, and you can also pass down Pokeballs. The Pokeballs are going to be passed from the males. So whatever the male Pokemon is in, that's what is going to get passed down, unless you're breeding with Dittos. So like this Applin's in a nest ball. So since Ditto doesn't pass the Pokeball, my Applin should all be hatching with nest balls. But if you're breeding two Pokemon in the same egg group, then you're going to see that it comes down to whatever the male Pokemon is. Now, I did mention as well with Cerebi.net, once he updates his website, you'll have egg groups. Every Pokemon falls into different egg groups, although most people are going to breed with Dittos, so that's going to be one of the most effective ways to go about breeding. Now, I did reach out on Twitter and I said, does anyone have any questions they'd like me to look into for breeding? So I can take some little Q&A here for the video. I think I've pretty much covered everything. It's really as simple as taking two parents and breeding them together and replacing the offspring until you get the desired offspring. I definitely recommend utilizing max raid battles in this game though, because that's a really good way to get hidden abilities. It's a really good way to get good stats on your Pokemon. And once you've beaten the game, you can get like perfect Pokemon just from doing that. And again, don't forget, in the end of the game, when you go to Winden, you have all these opportunities to use different items here in Winden to max out your stats. Whether it be mints, whether it be bottle caps, there's a lot of things that they've done to quality of life improve to make it so breeding in this game is much easier. You can buy mints over here, you can do the IV bottle caps over here, but again, neither of those pass down in breeding. So let me pull up this thread here of the different questions about people asked. So this is my breeding guide. So let me see if I can zoom in here a little. Okay, so here we go. So Kai asked me about the different stuff here. Lucky egg locations. We got the Everstone Destiny. I actually don't know about the lucky egg, but it might be off Pelipper's. Some Pokemon do have different hatch distances, but that hasn't been updated yet. I recommend using Cerebi.net for this information, which again, I'll have in the description below. How do foreign Pokemon work to increase the shine chance? Is it based on language or is it something else? So the previous game was based on language. So you could, in theory, make a separate account on your Switch and play through the game in Spanish and then get a Ditto from doing that. And it should work for Masuda Method. My safest bet that I would recommend to you is just get someone to trade you a Ditto that's from Japan, that's in Japanese, or someone from Germany that's in German. But it's in the past, it has been denoted by language of the game, not region. So just an FYI there. And again, I talked about the shine chance already, so we've got that going on. Updated egg group list. I actually don't have that yet, Adam, but that's a really good thing. In the past, instead of using Dittos, what a lot of people did was they would get Salandit, Phantom, Snorunt, Pancham, Archon, Dewpider, and Magikarp, and these 7 species actually covered every single Pokemon because every Pokemon lands in an egg group. However, now that it's so easy to get a good Ditto, it's really not that necessary. You can get a 5 or a 6 IV Ditto without cheating the game. So most people are probably going to do that. We talked about the Destiny Knot there. We talked about passing stats through breeding. We talked about hidden ability raids. I don't know what the chances are, but I had luck on a higher raid, but I also had luck on a lower raid. So we've talked about Impidimp. If you're having issues trying to get a female version of a Pokemon, some Pokemon don't show up as female version, so you might have to breed with a Ditto no matter what. We talked about those two things. We talked about egg moves. Toxels can't breed because they're considered baby Pokemon, so Pokemon like Togepi, Toxel, things like that, why not? They cannot breed, but you can breed their parents, of course. Chocolate Kieran here mentions that you can't breed Dittos with Dittos, so that's a really good thing. We've got our competitive guide there. This talks about getting, Jacario actually mentions getting the Pokemon dads, like I had mentioned before with the Archon and stuff, so that's another option there. We talked about IVs. IVs are passed down randomly, but when you use Destiny Knots, you're going to pass down 5 of the 12 stats, which is really good. We talked about the Ditto, all this stuff here. A lot of the questions are very similar because a lot of them are the main questions that people get. So this is how far do you have to get for eggs to hatch. They vary based on the species of Pokemon, but using Flame Body in your party is really useful, but it does not stack. You cannot have 6 Flame Body Pokemon to make it faster. Only one will work at a time. We talked about passing down hidden abilities. I don't think breeding is helping your chaining at all. You cannot breed Gigantamax Pokemon. That is something I definitely wanted to mention. Gigantamax Pokemon do not breed at all, guys, so keep that in mind. Okay, you can breed them, but you cannot pass down Gigantamax stats. So if you have a Gigantamax Charizard, the offspring will not be Gigantamax. So that's just an FYI there. And let me actually show that really quickly too, because that's another thing that has been very confusing for people. Let me just throw that in this video as well. So when I go to my PC here, I have a Gigantamax Butterfree, and you know it's a Gigantamax Butterfree because it has that big X next to its name. That indicates that it's a Gigantamax Butterfree. You can find a Butterfree that's not Gigantamax, it'll never Gigantamax. This particular one here is Gigantamax because I caught it as a Gigantamax Butterfree in a max raid battle. So you'll know when you catch a Gigantamax because it's Gigantamax already. Like, that's how it works in the raids. But again, I cannot pass that down to an offspring at all, okay? I think I've pretty much covered everything in this guide. I really tried to go as in-depth as I could and explain everything else. We talked about the Everstone, we talked about the Destiny Knot, we talked about the IV Checker and how to utilize that. We've talked about the power items, which can be really good for EV training, which will be a separate video in itself. Dittos are very easy to obtain this game. Flame Body or Magma Armor, get yourself a Carcoal or a Hidden Ability Sizzlepede like I did. I talked about the Oval Charm and the Shiny Charm. Hidden abilities pass down better from females, however, they do pass down from both male and female when you're using a Ditto. Hidden abilities can only be found in max raid battles, so make sure you guys grab them from there. Egg moves can be found in the wild through the yellow aura, but you can use Cerebi.net's egg move indicator to determine how to get the egg moves from various Pokemon, so that's really useful as well. You can use ability capsules, which are found through using battle points here. Ability capsules allow you to change the ability of a Pokemon, so if you've got a really cool Shawnee, you can change its ability, but you cannot use an ability capsule to get a hidden ability. You can, however, use an ability capsule to change a hidden ability to a non-hidden ability, so it goes backwards, but it doesn't go forwards in that regard. We talked about passing down Pokeballs, we talked about the Masuda Method, and we talked about pretty much everything there is for breeding competitive Pokemon. It's really not that hard. Once you have the tools in place, you can do it. The Battle Tower took about 10 or 15 minutes. Going around the world and getting the items you need doesn't take very long. You could be breeding within an hour, really, if you get the few tools. And remember, it's a snowball effect. The more you breed, the more good Pokemon you're gonna have to breed with, the better, offspring you'll have, and you can start training them up and getting cool, competitive, viable shinies. So that's the tutorial. It was pretty long-winded, but I really wanted to go in depth. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Butterfree, go!